Welcome to the webinar. I'm Lori Burns, an EAL support specialist. For this webinar, we will be focusing on language for presentations. Let's get started. Our objectives for today are to identify common presentation structure, examine common phrases used in presentations, explore the use of transitions and linking terminology, examine language for visual aids, and explore language for responding to questions. So, why are presentations important anyways? Presentations are used in many different situations and are often essential in professional environments. Presentations can help teach us to collect, organize, create, and present information. It is a real-world skill that can be used at work or for personal situations. Example, a speech at a special event. Here is an example presentation structure. This is just what it might be like. Not all presentations are the same. Check with your faculty or the guidelines of the assignment to see if you need to structure your presentation differently. The example presentation structure goes like this: greeting, introducing yourself, outlining your topic, timing and question policy, say how long the presentation will be, and explain when they can ask questions, the main body of the presentation, the conclusion, then answering questions the audience asks, and finally, thanking the audience. When you give a presentation, does your audience know where they are? How can they know what is coming next? They know because you tell them. You tell them by using signpost. A signpost is an indicator or a sign that tells the audience what is about to happen. We use signposting in presentations and in writing. It helps the reader or audience know what to expect next. In presentations, we put up signposts for the audience at the beginning and throughout the presentation. This is done using specific language. To create a signpost in a presentation, we use transition words. We'll look at some examples on the next slide. Let's talk about some of the transition words that we can use for moving from one idea to the next. To transition between similar ideas, you can use likewise and similarly. To transition to an example, you can use for example or to illustrate the point. To elaborate on an idea, you can use in addition and also. To show cause and effect, how one thing affects something else, therefore and as a result. Remember, in most cases, you need a comma following a transition word or transition phrase. Continuing with words that help you move from one idea to the next, let's look at language you can use to emphasize an idea. When you emphasize something, you are showing that it is important. Some examples of this would be above all, especially, in fact, and most importantly. When you want to refer or recall information that you said earlier, you can say, as I said, if you recall, or like I mentioned previously. This is helpful when answering questions. If someone in the audience has a question about your presentation and you have already provided that information, you can use the transition words phrases to reference information you have already provided. And finally, to contrast an idea, show something that is opposite or a different point, you can say, on the other hand, however, or but. When you want to summarize an idea, give the main points, you can say, in other words, in short, on the whole, or to sum up. Often, when you are doing a presentation, you will be using visual aids, like a PowerPoint presentation. When you want to draw the audience's attention to the presentation, you could use some language like, as you can see here, here we can see, if we look at this slide shows, if you look at the screen, you'll see, this table, diagram, chart, slide shows. I'd like you to look at this. Let me show you. On the right, left, you can see. At the end of the presentation, or during it, you might have to answer some questions. If you don't understand the question asked of you, you can use one of these clarifying questions to ask the person to repeat or explain more. If you really don't know the answer to the question, you could let them know you will get back to them. I'm afraid I didn't quite catch that. I'm sorry, could you repeat your question, please? I'm sorry, but I missed that. Could you say that again, please? I'm sorry, but I don't quite follow, understand, see what you mean. Could you just explain that some more, please? So, if I understand you correctly, you would like to know whether. If I could just rephrase your question, you'd like to know. Let me check that I have understood your question. Here are some tips to remember if you have a presentation. At the end of the presentation, give a brief conclusion. This is where you should summarize the main points of your presentation. Try not to read directly off a piece of paper. Look up, make eye contact. Try to engage with your audience. Try stories, hook, or movement to keep their interest. A hook is something like a fish hook to catch your attention, to make you want to hear more information about the situation. Also, you can walk around a bit while speaking. This helps keep the audience more engaged. Pause between chunks of information, the main points. Let the information sink in. Give the audience some time to absorb what you said. Try to avoid too many filler words and sounds such as like, and actually. And don't put too many words on the slides themselves. Just put the main points or bullet points. The points you have on your slides are for added information and clarity. Do not put your whole presentation sentences on the slides. A lot of people have anxiety about public speaking. Feeling nervous can be good though. It can motivate us to be more prepared. The best things to do when you know you have to do a presentation is to make sure to practice and remember to breathe. There are many available resources for NSCC students. Please take some time to explore them. Visit the NSCC EAL page to view the schedules for upcoming EAL webinars, to book an appointment with an EAL support specialist, and to use the EAL guide for additional resources to help increase your language learning. You can find all of these resources on the Learning Supports Connect page and link on the screen. Connect is NSCC's intranet and requires your NSCCW number and login. References.